All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. November 27th, 2024, public information meeting at 7 p.m. Start with roll call. Councillor Goida, Councillor Spoulos,
Here.
Councillor Bailey,
Here.
and Councillor Hurst.
Present.
Giving disclosure of conflict of interest today. So none. All right, a bit of a script to read here. Purpose of this public meeting is to inform and provide the public with the opportunity to ask questions or to express views with respect to a development proposal. Councilors are here to observe and listen to your comments. However, they will not make any decisions this evening. Township requests that you please notify by email, planning@wuslinch.ca, or by phone at 519-763-1226, extension 4, if you wish to be on record and would like to be notified of future hearings and decisions regarding this application. Please note the meeting is video and audio recorded, and all electronic meetings are uploaded to the municipality's YouTube page. By attending this meeting in person or by registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. Please note, in accordance with the amendments to the Planning Act through Bill 185, following parties may appeal this application to the Ontario Land Tribunal for a hearing. The applicant, a specified person, public body, registered owner of the property to which the bylaw would apply, and the minister. Please note that if a specified person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Wuslinch before the decision is made, the specified person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of Wuslinch to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, if a specified person or public body does not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make written comments to the Township of Wuslinch before the decision is made, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. You may wish to talk to Township staff regarding further information on the appeal process. The format of this public meeting is as follows. The applicant or agent will present the purpose and details of the application and any further relevant information. Following this, the public can obtain clarification, ask questions, and express their views on the proposal. Members of the public are permitted 10 minutes each to ask questions and express their views. This time limit is imposed to provide each member of the public an opportunity to speak. Council will then have an opportunity to ask any clarification questions. The applicant and the township planning consultant will attempt to answer questions or respond to concerns this evening. This is not possible. The applicant and or staff will follow up and obtain this information. Responses will be provided when this matter is brought forward and evaluated by council at a later date. This public meeting involves an application by Dan and Jerry Cornell. Zoning bylaw application D14 QUI. Property location municipally known as 1873 Town Line Road, Township of Wuslinch. Purpose and effect of this proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to amend the Township of Wuslinch new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 to rezone a portion of the lands from agricultural and natural environment to site-specific agriculture and site-specific natural environment to permit outdoor storage of recreational trailers. The application is required to fulfill conditions of consent application B101-21. Will the owner applicant make their presentation, please? So come on down. You'll display your sketch on the screen. Oh, Justine, sorry.
Evening, Mayor Sealand, members of council. I'm Dave Aston with MHBC Planning, agent for Quinault family. Dan and his son are here this evening. So I just have a brief presentation and just appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you tonight. So next slide. This is the location. I think everyone's probably fairly familiar with it. Town Line Road is to the west of the property. Access to this property is off of Town Line Road. When Town Line Road and the roundabout were developed, there was discussions and arrangement made for access to the property. And so that's how the property has been accessed over time. Just some background. The Quinault families own the property since 1922, so they've been with this property for some time in the township. In the past, the recreational trailer storage had started through discussions with the township. A consent application was applied for and approved with conditions associated with looking at the zoning associated with the trailer storage. So the consent application, like I say, was approved. The creation of the lot is for a member of the Quino family, so it's not for someone else, it's for a member of the family that will be moving into that lot. And so a condition of the consent is to bring the storage, the trailer storage component into conformity with the zoning bylaw. And there was some discussions with regard to the permission of the trailer storage dating back to previous township staff and legal nonconformity, but ultimately what we determined the best path forward was to proceed with the zone change application to bring the entire storage area into a zoning bylaw that then would allow some opportunity to add regulation, clarify some of the questions that were being asked associated with the storage on the site. So next slide. So what's being proposed is in the kind of yellow or orange area to permit the outdoor storage of recreational trailers. And in the bylaw, we've been very specific on what that is. It really is trailers. It's not, and I appreciate the mayor's clarification. It's not to store vehicles. We're not intending to store any motorized vehicles. It's not intended to store transport trailers. It really is recreational trailers. And the orange area has been identified in a few different ways. We worked with the GRCA and our consultant and the township consultant to confirm the limits of the wetland. So that was confirmed and identified. And then we worked with them also to determine an appropriate setback from that wetland and then appropriate demarcation so that there's no encroachment into the setback and into the wetland. And then to the north of the property, there's kind of existing treat area, and then we offset that to provide some buffer. There's also a grade differential as well. So we're looking at just the orange area for that outdoor storage area. And next, please. So from a policy perspective, we need to amend the zoning bylaw to add the site-specific provision. There's some change to the natural environment area that's based on the on-site field work to clarify the limits. Not typically, but sometimes in official plans and zoning bylaws, there's delineations of features based on desktop, and this was confirmed through field work. So we've identified those areas, and you can see that on both the slides. And then on the northern portion, as I mentioned, we're looking to keep the storage area outside of the Greenlands area that's identified. Next slide. So this just shows a conceptual site plan. Should the zoning be approved, we'll work with the township on a site plan application, which will then require the site plan agreement, which will put into place requirements to make sure the site's maintained in accordance with the site plan and really implement the zoning that's being proposed. So you can see the storage of trailers. There's a couple of comments I just want to note while I'm going through this. There's gravel driveway. There's no intent to put gravel on the entire site. The storage will remain as it is on grassed area and pervious cover. So just the gravel on the main driveway. There's no plan to do any grading, bring in any fill, add any more gravel than what's already there now. This plan shows the wetland delineation, 5 meter setback, and where we're going to put the posts for identification of trailers. Some of the trailers may need to move out a little bit out of the setback. That's something that will be done as well. Next, please. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, the bylaw was originally proposed. We amended based on feedback that was received through the review process from the township's environmental consultant, the GRCA. And then we had the planning advisory committee meeting, and there were comments received there, and we further amended the bylaw to specifically identify an area calculation and a maximum number of trailers that could be stored. We provided some further clarity on essentially that nothing could happen within the wetland or the wetland setback, structurally grading or anything to that effect. And then some other details as far as gravel and making sure we weren't increasing any impervious areas. Next. So I reviewed the package from this evening. I just wanted to pull out agency comments. We've been doing a lot of work over the last, I think maybe 2 years with the township and agencies. And just to flag some here from the township perspective, there's no concerns raised for the various departments. With regard to ecology, we have worked quite diligently with Azimuth, the peer review consultant, and they have no concerns subject to the bylaw, including the requirements that were identified, including the wetland, the demarcation, and the setback. So all of those have been included. The county comments, from my read of them, they have no concern, or they raised some concern over the scale, something they've been talking about, but they have not identified any conformity issue with the county official plan. That's one thing that at the public advisory committee meeting was requested, and my view of the county comments is that there's no conformity issue with the official plan and the designation being in secondary agriculture. They had some suggestion on trying to manage the scale, and then a suggestion on updating the bylaw to not permit livestock within the existing barn to address MDS. I think that's something we would have no concern adding to the bylaw. It hasn't been happening for some time. And then the GRCA, we've worked through, again, I would characterize as no concerns. They had a further comment on the bylaw to only permit gravel for existing driveways. And again, that's the intent. So we can work with the township planner to make both of those changes in the proposed bylaw for council consideration. Next slide is the conclusion. In our review of the policies, I know this public meeting, there's still staff review to come for our council consideration, but you know, we're seeing the applications as being consistent with provincial policy. The lands are in rural lands. These types of uses are consistent with permissions in rural lands. It conforms with the county official plan. The county comments do not indicate any conflict with conformity. It's protecting the natural environment area that was flagged. That's been confirmed by the GRCA and the township consultant. And we believe we've established good parameters and criteria for regulations associated with the use to manage the use on the site. And to date, we're not aware of any public comments raising any concern with what's being proposed, but it is the public meeting tonight. But so far, we're not aware of any public issues being raised. That's all that I have this evening. Happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll turn it over to Jesse.
Oh, is there like a, oh, I guess there's not. I'm so used.
Yep, no, it's just right up here, yeah, and Justine can click through it if there's any to advance.
So the applicant has addressed a lot of what I was going to say, just going over. So I'll go to the next slide. So I was gonna go over the development process, the proposal and location, provincial, regional, and provincial county planning comments, the zoning bylaw amendment, comments that have been received, next steps, as well as, and then get to questions and comments. Next slide. As the applicant has already identified, the subject lands have gone through consent to create a residential parcel. And back in 2022, they reapplied and their consent application was renewed in 2024. As a condition of consent, they were required to bring the subject lands into conformity with the zoning bylaw. Once, as part of the whole process, there's several other conditions that will have to be fulfilled. Next slide. So the application proposes a zoning bylaw amendment. The zoning bylaw amendment, as indicated, would fulfill the condition of severance, and it also, but the bigger item is it will allow for the outdoor storage of recreational trailers on the subject lands. As described by the applicant, the amendment includes provisions to prevent encroachment into the natural environment zone. So I'll go to the next slide. So the applicant's already gone through the location, which is the subject lands on the east side of County Line Road, and west of Lake Puslinch, and east of the urban boundary of east of Cambridge. Next slide. So within the provincial planning statement, the lands are identified as rural lands. The county official plan identifies the lands as secondary agriculture, core greenlands, and greenlands. And the zoning bylaw zones the lands agricultural, natural environment, and environmental protection overlay. The reason why the lands have that greenland designation is because of a provincially significant wetland, floodplain, slope, valley, and woodland. The designations, what the overall intent is to protect agricultural lands, natural heritage features, and also allow for small scale commercial, industrial, or institutional uses. So this provides a map showing the different designations and zones that apply to the subject lands. The applicant has already, the applicant has already gone into depth into the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I'm not going to repeat that, but so if we could go to the next slide. So in terms of comments that have been received, we know that there are no outstanding concerns to be addressed through this process from GM Blue Plan, building, fire, hydrogeology, public works, or the region. The region of Waterloo have provided comments that they didn't have concerns, just because it is adjacent to Cambridge, so they would be able to comment. From ecology, there is no concerns with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment. They are requiring an edge management plan at site plan stage, and they're also suggesting entrance maps and site brochures to be provided to identify the property users and the location of the CSW and woodland and its buffer, and also best management practice. Wellington source water protection, there was no outstanding concerns regarding the zoning bylaw amendment, but they are requesting a salt management plan to manage winter maintenance activities, and also a liquid fuel handling, storage, and spill response procedure. This is a matter that can be addressed at site plan stage, and also of the zoning in terms of limiting certain uses on the lands. The GRCA requests that the use of gravel not be permitted because it's not considered to be, I think, they want more permeable, I believe, type of material. So, if we go, to the next slide. So bylaw had, addressed, various compliance matters that have to be addressed through the site plan process, so. I don't, and then, County of Wellington, they do have concerns regarding scale and land use compatibility with the newly proposed lot. On the concern, they have suggested county staff are encouraging consideration of limiting the location of the use by not allowing it directly behind the future residential lot. And county also recommends that the proposed amendment be updated to address MDS. So PDAC had raised several planning matters, including what is being parked on the lands they want to know, and I believe the applicant has clarified that. Potential impacts of environment, whether the proposed use conforms to the county official plan, impacts, whether an EIS should be completed to address impacts, and whether the bylaw should limit the number of trailers on the property. And I think the applicant has addressed a lot of those points. So in terms of next steps, we're undergoing ongoing review of the application. The applicant has the opportunity to make some revisions. We are anticipating that this recommendation report will be coming at the upcoming council meeting, which I believe is December 18th. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Is there anybody in the gallery that would wish to have some clarification or ask questions around this application? Anybody online? And if so, if you're online, you need to state your name and address for the record, please.
Launch a number of media and.
Just give it another moment. Who's the guy? I can't read that far. Oh, it's Scott. Okay. Does Mr. Bardwell have any questions for this application? We'll give about 30 seconds. Maybe less. 30 seconds seems like a long time to get waiting for it. Okay, is any questions of clarification from council?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah,
Ms. Bailey?
just one question. You mentioned at the end there that the county had a concern. And I think this is more about the consent application, but it's, they didn't want any of the trailers being parked behind the new lot. Is that the comment? Was it?
Sorry, to clarify, it applies to the zoning bylaw amendment application. They think they want a little bit of a buffer from the residential lot to the, from the residential lot to where the trailers would be parked. Let's see if we have. Here we go. I can't share my screen or anything, but if you kind of see, if you look at the, if you look at my report and you look at attachment 2, or for that, you can see some of the trailers encroaching onto the residential lot right now. And they want to the future residential lot, and they want to maintain a little bit of a setback.
Do you know what the requested setback?
They have not
They haven't mentioned
identified.
Okay, and is that just for compatibility?
Yes,
So Is that something that,
I get through Mayor Sealy, the lot is for Dan's son.
yeah, but you might not always live there.
Well, I think the family's been there since 1922. I don't think they're planning to move. The trailers will be moved off the lot. That's proposed now. I don't know what kind of setback, if we said we'll set them back 5 meters or something, and we could do something, I guess, probably, because but if that's something that we think is necessary, then I think that's something we could propose and work with moving forward. I don't know that the county probably doesn't really understand the dynamics of the land ownership and might be wondering, if it is a different landowner, but, if that's something we could consider.
It is a valid concern because we have to look at, the worst case scenario where they are family members or, and conflicts of the land use. So I think it's a fair
Sure.
question and we can't, I'll just leave it at that, but.
Yeah, I think it's something that an updated bylaw we can take a look at and we can propose something we'll work with Jesse and come up with something in an updated bylaw for council consideration.
Stuff, then is there a typical buffer distance that is used for something like this in site plan agreements?
Oh, it really varies, and I think part of it is, if there's the buffer, but then there's also what's within the buffer. So there is the potential to probably, like, I think if you're providing a 5 meter buffer and maybe you're providing some type of landscaping features, so walls or through the site plan approvals process, you might be able to get away with a buffer that's that size.
I think it's something to definitely consider.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other?
I just have one more technical question. I saw in the briefing notes an edge management plan referenced a number of times. Can you maybe just speak to what that would be? I'm presuming it's the designated perimeter and what that would look like, but can you just maybe articulate that a bit more?
Sure, I'll try through Mayor Sealy. What my understanding is, it includes kind of the demarcation posts to make sure that there's not encroachment into the wetland. So there's the buffer and the posts, and then managing kind of that area in between over time. So to make sure trailers aren't heading into there, making sure that, gravel or invasive species aren't growing up into there as well. I think it's really just managing that buffer area so that it remains a good buffer between the environmental area and the storage area. I think we may get some more details through the site plan, but that's my understanding and previously kind of talking with GRCA and the township consultant.
And that's fair. I think I was just to your point, maybe more an example of what that would look like, just because I didn't have a clear understanding. My last question is just in reference, and again, I'd seen a couple instances where gravel use is prohibited. Now, I maybe somewhat scratching my head on that, like if you're trying to maintain a laneway over the course of time, one would in theory need to top up gravel, potholes and everything like that. So can you maybe just explain the prohibition? My understanding would be is like if we wanted to put gravel over the entire area where the trailers would potentially be stored, that's a very different use of gravel than just, I would say, a driveway maintenance size.
Through Mayor, my understanding of the GRC comment, and I think even the way it's worded is the existing gravel driveway that is there is okay. Adding a bunch of new gravel driveways is what we're trying to avoid, and there's no intent to do that. And even the county comment on a salt management plan is one I want to talk about, because there's going to be no intent to put any salt down on the property, on the grass or the gravel. So, but that's the intent.
And maybe just the fault, my understanding would be the trailer storage. These are trailers that are typically utilized throughout the summer months-ish, spring, summer, fall. Then the owners of the trailers are transitioning in there in the late fall. Presumably they stay there for the entire winter. So we're not seeing a lot of trailers coming and going per se through the year. It'd be presumably the vast majority arriving in the fall, staying there for the winter, leaving in the spring type of thing.
Yes, that's right. It's kind of put it away for the winter and it's there. And then when the season starts, there's some people that that is parking in their driveway, for example, in a subdivision. They're parking it there and then using it and coming in and out. So, yeah, it's more of a late spring, summer, late fall, where there's actually activity happening.
I think I'm good. I had some questions in the chem management plan, but I think I saw lots of detail in terms of what that looks like. So I think I'll leave that one.
Councilor Bailey has one.
Yeah, just a question for Jesse, just in piggybacking on the demarcation posts. And the sort of the encroachment into the wetland, is that something GRCA would be monitoring over time to make sure there isn't any encroachment, or do we know how that?
I'll have to look into how that actually would get enforced.
Okay,
Me, if I might, that would be this, also the site plan agreement. So there'd be a site plan agreement that would be on making sure that that's in place. And that could be enforced then either, I guess, by the GRCA or by township staff, because it'd be an agreement with the township.
typically we wouldn't monitor it unless it was through a complaint or something, typically, okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Are we gonna delineate the rear property line of the severed parcel to prevent creep of the trailers onto that? Because we're doing it for the wetland, but there's no mention of, and I know these lines might not be exact, but as we can see, there's some trailers and for me, zoning compliance is top priority, especially with all the troubles we have with the aggregate industry. So to hold everybody to the same standard, I would want staff to consider ensuring that the residential property is delineated so that they don't create trailers on them. The buffer, I don't know if I necessarily support a buffer, but some sort of mitigation between, so the buffer, you're mentioning is 5 meters, you know, it's gonna push the trailers away, but possibly a berm with a fence on the top of it, just to stop the visual. So either a buffer or some sort of mitigation between the residential parcel and the trailer storage, because that will help in the future if the situation changes, to keep those two uses from having hopefully some conflicts, but I'll just maybe say that to staff for a takeaway, because that's part of the county's concern, it is to use the word buffer, but it could be some sort of mitigation.
Maybe we can look at trees or landscape or something there as well.
And possibly, it could be done at the, site plan for the residential parcel when there's a building getting going. We don't need a fence there on a hill, there's no, if there isn't a house. So I'll leave that with staff to determine if they can do it when construction of the home starts or whatever's easier.
Sorry, can I answer that before we do? It's very difficult to do that on the residential portion. The reason being is, dwellings are not subject to site plan control. So it has to be on the part where the trailers are stored.
So we had the kennel down on the Gore, and we had a holding provision for across the road, there was a vacant lot, and the holding provision was when that house gets built, you'll have to do X, Y, and Z, right? So maybe we could have a holding provision that, as long as they're not over that line, I don't want the trailers creeping over the line, but I'm just planting some ideas. So once the house gets built, then maybe there has to be mitigation, but I just don't want to put, undue process on, you're 5 years away from building the house. We don't need a berm there protecting from the site of the trailers, so.
Yeah, understood.
I'll leave that with staff and wherever it's more appropriate to just hash that out. I think that's it. So
Great.
thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank
Have a
you.
Good night. All right, next we'll do 5.2. You guys, if you want to stay, you can stay. If you want to. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, next is 5.2. The public meeting involves an application by Jefferson Farms Ltd. Zoning bylaw application D14 JEF. Jefferson Farm Ltd. Property location usually known as 86 Farnham Road, Township of Plessis. Purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw limit is to amend the Township of Plessis new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2/2018. Change a portion of the zoning from agricultural zone A to site-specific agricultural. to prohibit livestock in existing agricultural buildings, and to permit an existing barn to have a maximum height of 9 meters. The application is required to fulfill conditions of consent application B 17-23. You have, oh, come on down, Mr. Huesman.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Yes, thanks. So, I'm Jeff Huesman with Van Horn Surveying and here to talk about this application. Fairly straightforward. Severance has been approved already quite some time ago for a severance in the corner of this property. The Jeffersons are cash crop farmers and for a long time. And they've got a lot of nice buildings, including a very nice bank barn that they wanted to keep standing. So the challenge is that with this severance, it does not meet MBS compliance to that barn. The barn hasn't been used for animals. We tried to argue, hey, this barn has not been used for animals for decades. Inside is a nice shop, carpenter shop, that kind of thing. All the milk stuff is out of there and so on. But we felt at the end of the day, we felt the best control would be to ensure that animals never go in that barn. So we can be in compliance with MBS, and the zone change was found to be the best way to manage that, and control that. At the same time, we're just recognizing also that the barn as it is today doesn't meet the height guidelines, and that's why we're asking for 9 meters so we can protect the existing barn. It's pretty straightforward. I think you've seen probably all the comments and so forth, that everyone's supportive. I would say this is more of a technical, it's a bit of a technical administrative, but the main advantage out of all of this is to keep that nice looking barn in place, which I think everybody likes to see. And Jeffersons really want to keep it as well. That's why we're here. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Jesse, anything to add?
I could go through I could go through my PowerPoint, or if you need that, or,
Yeah, sure.
okay.
We're here. You drove from Toronto, so
Okay,
I wouldn't say don't go through it word for word, but
I'll go through it quickly. Yeah, so, yeah, I'll go through the next slide. So the consent application, it was conditionally approved on May 11th, 2023 by the county. The applicant has summarized, their application for zoning bylaw amendment, pretty well. And they are in the process of fulfilling conditions of consent. So the zoning bylaw amendment proposed is to, as indicated, it's required to fulfill conditions of consent for the severance of a residential lot. The amendment specifically is, proposes provisions to prohibit livestock facilities in the existing accessory buildings and to permit the existing bank barn to have a height of 9 meters. This is required to ensure compliance with MDS and also conformity of the structure on the retained parcel with the township zoning bylaw. So the location, so the location of the subject lands is on the northwest side of Farnham Road, southwest of Carter Road, and it is adjacent to the Guelph Junction railway line. So that kind of goes that awkward into towards the north. That's so under the, we go to the next slide. So the provincial planning statement identifies these as rural lands. The county official plan, it designates it as prime agricultural, core greenlands, and greenlands. The Porcelain zoning bylaw, it identifies it as agricultural, natural environment, and environmental protection overlay. So the above designations and zones aim to identify and protect agricultural areas and natural heritage features. I want to point out that there is a special policy PA-74. So typically the severance that was approved would not be approved on in prime agricultural areas. This area of the township has special policy that allows for uses in secondary ag areas to be allowed in this area. So I'll go to the next slide. Yeah, so I've identified the specifics of the site-specific zoning bylaw, which is to prohibit livestock facilities in the existing accessory buildings and to meet NDS and to recognize the height of the existing bank barn being 9 meters. Go to the next slide. So there aren't really outstanding concerns or, and let's go to the next slide. So once this is done, once this application's completed, the next step is to provide a recommendation report to council, which we anticipate bringing forward December 18th. Once this application, a decision is made on this application, the applicant would need to work towards continuing to fulfill conditions of consent.
Thank you. Is anybody from the public wishing to speak for this? Wow. None. Anybody online? All right, seeing none. Any questions from council? Any clarification? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Great, next we'll move on to item 5.3. This public meeting involves an application by, I'm gonna mispronounce your name, White Schreiber. Is that how you pronounce that? Okay. Zoning bylaw application D14 SCR. Property location municipally known as 4438 Watson Road, Township of Putzlinch. Purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to amend the Township of Putzlinch new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 to change the zoning from agricultural zone to site-specific agricultural and to site-specific natural environment. The application is required to fulfill conditions of consent application B 2824 to recognize existing buildings and structures and ensure that no new dwellings or accessory structures will be permitted on the severed lands. We have the owner and applicant to come down, please. Good evening.
Hi.
Oops. Do you have anything to share? No. Good. Excellent.
Yeah, my name's Tom Woodcock. I'm the agent on this application. We submitted the zoning bylaw amendment application in order to satisfy condition of consent, which was granted earlier this year by Wellington County. And the intent is to have a conservation severance of 96 acres of the Scrivener's 114 acre lot to be donated to the organization I work for, the Rare Charitable Research Reserve, which is a land trust, in order to preserve and steward that land in perpetuity, engage in scientific research and other similar activities on that property. So in order for that severance to occur, we needed to have this zoning amendment to ensure that the entire severed portion of the property was site-specific natural environment and zoned. And the remaining 18 acres, the retained lot, which has the Scrivener's dwelling and buildings on it, will remain in agricultural zoning, but needs to be brought into conformity for the height of one of the buildings that was built several decades ago.
Yeah, thank you. Jesse, anything?
Yeah, if you, I'll go through my presentation if that's all right. So the application for consent was conditionally approved in June 2024. The application facilitated, actually, if we go to, so right now we're going for the applicant's going for application for zoning bylaw amendment to fulfill conditions of consent. And once this is done, the applicant will continue working towards fulfillment of those conditions. So that, as indicated, the application for consent proposed to convey 38.9 hectares of land to the Rare Land Trust, and 7.501 hectares of land would continue to be used for the residential use. The proposal proposes, so there are some site-specific exemptions proposed. So there's an existing accessory building on part one, that, would exceed the maximum height permitted. And the amendment also includes, provisions prohibiting the construction of a new dwelling or accessory building on part two. Well, we can go to the next slide. So the subject lands are southwest of Watson Road South and southeast of Welling. If we go to the next slide. So the provincial planning statement identifies the lands as rural lands. The county official plan designates the lands secondary agricultural, core greenlands and greenlands. And the Portland zoning bylaw zones the lands agricultural, natural environment and environmental protection overlay. So the above designations aim to identify and protect agricultural lands and natural heritage features. Part of the reason why these designations apply are because of floodplain, PSWs, provincially significant wetlands, woodlands, watercourses and water bodies. The next slide shows the designations and zoning that applies to the lands. So, the zoning bylaw amendment would rezone part two, the severed lands to a site-specific agricultural zone. And to site-specific natural environment zone to prevent the construction of a new dwelling or accessory building with the exception of the existing building used for tool storage. And a site-specific exemption is proposed for an existing accessory building on part one to achieve conformity. So there was no outstanding concerns from building, fire, bylaw enforcement, hydrogeology, public works, engineering, groundwater, environmental management protection services, the Grand River Conservation Authority, or Wellington Forest Water Protection. County of Wellington Planning and Development staff don't have outstanding concerns, but they're suggesting that instead of rezoning the lands proposed to be conveyed to rare, instead of rezoning it to natural environment, they're suggesting rezoning it to a site-specific agricultural zone. And this would also ensure that no new residential dwelling is permitted on those lands. From the PDAC, there was one question raised regarding the type of scientific research that would be conducted on the property. So there is ongoing review of the application. There is going to be comments provided to the applicant, and the applicant can respond to comments. And a recommendation report is anticipated to be prepared for the December 18th council meeting.
Thank you, Jesse. Anybody in the gallery that wish to comment or on this file? No? Council have any questions?
Yeah, this is a question about the applicant and the staff. Understand from our previous conversations that you have a time constraint when you want to get this all done so that you can apply for the appropriate funding.
Yeah, we've been awarded funding to cover planning and legal costs from an organization that promotes the conservation and protection of land. And that there is a time constraint on that. We need to have it closed in by February 17th, 2025. So the actual property transfer will need to occur by then, or that funding will be at risk.
This question of staff, this time is going to come to December 18th meeting, and the council does approve the rezoning. How soon is that come into play?
For you, Mr. Chair. So once the council makes a decision, and council makes a decision to approve the zoning bylaw amendment, staff will prepare the notice, which will be sent out in short order, just, given we'll be having to, our office closure. And so then there will be the 20-day appeal period, and if there are no appeals received, then the bylaw will come into force in effect following that 20-day appeal period.
Spiel?
Yeah, just a question. And you mentioned at the end, the county was suggesting a different designation or different,
Yeah,
what's the term?
so they wanted, so the applicant is proposing a site-specific natural environment zone to prevent the construction of a new dwelling. The county is suggesting that the entirety of the property not be rezoned to natural environment, but the agricultural lands be rezoned to a site-specific agricultural zone to prevent the construction of a new dwelling.
Okay, is there anything to prevent the structure that's in part two to become a dwelling? It says you can't build a new dwelling, but I heard through.
The structure wouldn't be able to be converted to a dwelling through either approach.
Through either, okay. And then I guess, just a question to you, are there other lands within Puslinch that rare?
This would be our first property within Puslinch.
Okay.
We have 4 properties currently within Guelph Aramosa, along the Aramosa River corridor. And we should be getting another ecological gift in Center Wellington coming year.
Just good to know, thanks.
Sorry, I would like to clarify, the reason for the intent of the county's comments. Then the natural environment zone is intended to protect natural heritage features. So for example, significant woodlands, significant wetlands. The entirety of the lands do not feature that. There's portions that don't feature that. So that's why they want a site-specific agricultural, they're suggesting that it might be a good idea to rezone it to site-specific agricultural zone for the lands that don't feature that. It's more of a technical thing than as any real impact on the overall. So
Thank you.
I don't know. They were asked previously.
Just building off of that, if staff decide to go down the path the county wants, is that going to delay this process?
So council the applicant can apply for something. Council has the option to make a decision to pass any bylaw that it wishes. Like it doesn't have to pass the bylaw that was applied for by the applicant. So we can come in with a bylaw that would rezone those lands to agricultural site specific for the December 18th meeting. But I would suggest that if that was the case, we would get some sort of concurrence from the applicant.
Scott, but I think it's important to have protections to make sure that it doesn't become a residence on it. Whether any does that sufficiently, or we need the site-specific agricultural, similar to farm surplus, I'll let staff sort that out, but I think you're gonna be under tight timelines and your funding's at risk for February. And so I'm not trying to delay your application, so.
Anything further? Okay, last chance to the gallery, anybody? I declare this public meeting closed. Council will take no action on the proposal tonight. Staff will be reporting at a later date with a recommendation for council's consideration. If you wish to receive further notification of this proposal, please email or call planning@puslinch.ca or by phone at 519-763-1226, extension 4, or contact township staff during regular business hours. Only those persons who leave their names will be provided further notification. If you wish to speak to the proposal when it is brought before council in the future, you must register as a delegation with the municipal clerk prior to the meeting. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.